Ian, why would you say?
I'm here today to support workers in struggle because these are really struggling. The statistics that you're seeing now about the civil servants, professionals, public servants utilising food banks because of the poverty they're being plunged in because of 12 years austerity. And, they're saying enough's enough, ringing out a lot at the moment, and you can hear from these now, enough really is enough. These have got families to feed, they've got lives to live, and they need rewarding after what they've done for us through the pandemic.
They were hailed as essential workers, but they're not being treated as such.
No, absolutely. You're getting treated absolutely appallingly, and you stand in that chamber. You see what we've seen on Monday, with the strikes bill, and it's just appalling. It's absolutely appalling. It's easy saying these warm words, isn't it? And standing on your outside your house, clapping and putting photos on, social media. But when they need support, when they actually need, support, which means something, well, it's not forthcoming from this government. And I think what they're actually doing and driving people into strikes to try and prove some sort of ideological point is a disaster for the country.
Would you say that the support shown by the government for essential workers was performative rather than real?
I think it's awful. I think that there's no support being shown, is there? And I think it's very confrontational, and it's right across the board in every sector. And it's the public that are suffering, as the people, who were on the picket lines. Let's remember they were losing pay now, in a time of real struggle, because they're fighting for essential services. They're fighting for the future of our country. So it's really important that these battles are won and we support them.
And then there's 500,000 people out on strike today. What do you think the level of industrial action being taken says about the state of the country?
I think it's a message to the government that people cannot survive no more. And I think there's a tipping point. You can't run a country on goodwill, and that's what's happening at the moment. The NHS, from every sector, there's so much goodwill being shown. People are going well above where they're paid to do to keep the country going. So there's a message there. We want a different economic system. We want a fairer and more just economic system, and that's what this fight's for now.
And then the minimum service level has passed the Commons and is heading to the Lords. What's your opinion on that piece of legislation?
That's one of the worst pieces of legislation this country's ever seen. One of the most divisive, potentially illegal pieces of legislation. And when you've got Jacob Rees-Mogg, I'm sitting there watching them stand up and absolutely slaughter that piece of legislation. And hopefully the House of Lords will absolutely, take it apart. It's so wrong that you've got to legislate because of the ineptness and the ideological position of a government. It's so wrong for the future of this country.
Do you think this is the end of the Conservative government?
Hope so.
Yesterday the police apologised for Hillsborough. What are your thoughts on that?
Far too little, far too late. We got an apology after all the years from the police. What they actually recommended doesn't go anywhere near far enough. We want a Hillsborough law, and that's what we're fighting for. I'm chair of the APPG. I put in for the urgent question today, so fingers crossed, and hopefully we can get that and then, move forward.
And then what would you like to see? What action would you like to see taken?
I want to see the government implement a Hillsborough law. I want a complete rebalancing of the justice system, so if anything happens in the future like it did to us with Hillsborough, people have got an actual chance of getting justice, because we never had a chance. And the longer there's prevarication from the government, another disaster happens, that same happened to the community. We've got a commitment now from the Labour Party to implement Hillsborough law now in its totality, so that's a fantastic move. Hopefully the other parties, opposition parties, will do the same, but the government are here now potentially for another 2 years. They've got the opportunity to actually put in Bishop Jones's recommendations, which was a Hillsborough law which was commissioned by Theresa May. He reported back in 2017, and it's a disgrace that I haven't heard 6 years of response from the government.
What's stopping them?
You tell me. We've got absolutely no idea. We're finding real difficulty getting through to Rob. Previous Justice Secretaries have been a bit more forthcoming, but Theresa May wants it. There's a will there, so they need to act. They need to act now, and the country are waiting, and certainly Hillsborough family survivors, but not just Hillsborough. Contaminated blood scandal, nuclear test veterans. There's a whole litany of injustices that have shown how the state covered up. That's got to end, and that's what these have got the opportunity to do.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No.
Excellent. Thanks for your time.
Well done, mate.